Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Brewing Business Show. This is a space dedicated to the craft beer industry and entrepreneurs who wants to learn more about mindset, health, wealth, business, and of course, beer. I'm your host, Pedro Meneses, and before we start, I just want to make sure you buckle up, crack open a cold one, and get ready to hear some life-changing information. Cheers. So welcome back, everybody, to episode 33 of the Brewing Business Show. If this is your first time, be sure to check out the previous episodes. And guys, don't forget to leave me that review on iTunes or YouTube so you can help more people to find the show. And today, I have the pleasure to introduce you to someone with a great energy and passion for serving others. He's a senior accountant and financial management professional, but his abilities go far beyond the balance sheet. In 2016, he started Hops News while working as chief financial officer at Appalachian Mountain Brewery to showcase breweries doing incredible things through their liquid. He have also featured nonprofits and used the donate features to support their cause. And to this date, they have raised over $2,000 during their live Hoppy hours and over $40,000 to direct support of local events. He started Hops News not just because he loves beer, but because he loves the culture that craft beer has created and to move forward his mission in the philanthropy through beer. And today, he's here to share his experience, his vision, and talk about business and beer. So welcome to the show, Jeremy. It's a pleasure to have you here, man.
Man, I've never had an introduction like that, so definitely appreciate your end of it. I'm usually on the other end doing the same thing, so nice. Appreciate that.
I know how it feels to be on the other side of the interview this time, huh?
Yeah, it feels good, man. It's always good. You know, I'm definitely not one of those guys that tend to toot my own horn, but it's definitely good to hear what's written on my resumes. So yeah, man, appreciate you and appreciate you reaching out, man. You've got I've listened to a few episodes. You've got a good thing going here. I definitely enjoy it and appreciate what you're doing for the beer industry.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. And you know, just as you, I'm passionate about beer. I love this industry too, and I'm trying to do as much as I can as you. To serve this industry and help the industry move forward, because especially during this year, that I think has been a huge transformation for this industry. I think the entire industry is going through a big transition right now, especially that the industry is entering all the digital era and all the stuff, the tools that they have available in today's day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging times, but as I tell everybody in the business world, you can be really good at brewing beer and have created a tremendous liquid in the can. But if you don't take advantage of opportunities, you're going to be left behind. And I know this is ruined a lot of businesses, but it's simply because they didn't take advantage of an opportunity. And there's a shit ton of opportunity out there right now.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter where we doesn't matter what the fuck is going on out there with all the virus and the elections and all that stuff. I totally agree with you. There's always opportunity. I have many opportunities this year. I have taken advantage of all those opportunities, and I can wait to end up this year even stronger. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but man, it's definitely, personally, I'm definitely not immune to what's going on. We've definitely taken a hit, but it's given me some time to say, hey man, now it's time to fucking reevaluate, pony up, and either put up and shut up. That old saying. It's time to put the feet to the ground and really get serious about things. So yeah, I hate it for the people that aren't going to make it through it with businesses, but these are times that separate the good from the bad, really.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with you. But before we get into more depth into all the business part and all the things that you want to share today, man, talk to us a little about your story, your background, so people can know exactly where you're coming from and all your knowledge and experience that you have gained through the years.
Yeah, well, I've probably got the most unique background coming up into me becoming a CFO at a publicly traded brewery that we recently sold the assets to. I fucking hated school. I'm not even gonna lie to you. High school, chemistry, I was in the hall, sitting in the hall by myself every day. To be honest with you, I have no idea how I graduated with a degree, got my ass on a plane and went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Did about 9 years in the Army. That was, man, if I could go back and do that all over again, I would do it in a minute. I was a big kid in high school, offensive lineman, one of the biggest kids on the football team. Sucked going into the Army and realizing what you got to do to make it through that, but did it and had a blast, man. I was in Kosovo in 9/11.
Oh wow!
So had been through some shit. Left the Army, divorced. It was kind of one of those situations. You're at that point in your career, and you've got some decisions to make. I didn't want to do what the Army wanted me to do. It's not what I signed up for. So I kind of got the FTA attitude, fuck the Army attitude, and let me go figure out what's next. I had a semester of school and went to rookie school, man. And I've kind of seen a lot of shit in the 20 years of public service, but I went and worked law enforcement for about just a little over 11 years. Biggest mistake I made in that was becoming a supervisor, babysitting police officers and citizens. I'd injured my back on a jump. I was on airborne status when I was in the Army at Fort Bragg and injured my back. I'm probably one of the few success stories to come out of the VA because those guys don't do a lot of things well. But I filed a claim, fought that hard. I mean, there was a point I couldn't get out of bed for almost a month and a half because of back issues that I was dealing with. A lot like everything else, you're young and dumb. I was on the SWAT team. I was doing everything that I could do in law enforcement, the same that I was doing in the military, but my back just wasn't keeping up with me. Right. Filed a VA claim, went through all of that, and I'll never forget that conversation ever. Just like it happened yesterday. Took the assessment, went to the lady's office there in Greensboro, North Carolina, and sat down with her, and she looked over the aptitude testing and said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I'm 30, mid-30s. My wife is a retail manager at a popular mall store. Worked her ass off. I worked nights 2 weeks out of the month. Was on days. We never seen each other. Had a baby coming." I'm like, you're going to have to, and there's no way in this fucking world you're going to get an answer from me today because I have no idea. All I knew is I wasn't going to be anything in the medical field because biology sucked. I had an associate's degree at the time in law enforcement, law enforcement. You had to have biology then, so I knew what it wasn't going to be. And to be honest with you, man, I had no idea. The first thing that came to mind was, go be a lawyer. No way I was going to do that. Talked to a guy that was a lawyer that worked for me at one time, and he's like, if you go to law school, you got to move. And we weren't. I love North Carolina. If you haven't visited North Carolina is a gem, man. We've got skiing in the west and the beach on the east, so it is perfect for a guy that's from Michigan. And I struggled with it. I asked the guy then, I asked him sitting there in his office, I said, what would you do, man? What would you do if you had it to do all over again? He's like, man, go get your fucking accounting degree and don't look back. And went home that evening and I punched in accountants and I seen what the trend was and what the demand was going to be over the next decade. And I said, I don't know shit about accounting, but those dollar numbers, I can do some fucking accounting. If you can, my thought was, if you could do this, you could do anything, right? If you could be a cop and work the shit that I've had to deal with for the past decade, I can definitely be an accountant. Appalachian State, we lived in Hickory, North Carolina. At the time, Appalachian State University was just up the road. Being a Michigan guy, I heard about them from 2009 when they beat Michigan. And it had always told myself I got the opportunity to go. I applied for their accounting program. Had no idea what I was getting myself into, man. I was old enough to be some of those kids' dads. Went back to school full time, man. I will tell you, man. This is even hard for me to talk about with getting choked up, man. Went back to school. I resigned. About 2 weeks after I resigned, my wife was a breadwinner, mind you. So that would tell you a little bit about where she was at. She worked for a big mall store, was the breadwinner. I was a supervisor in law enforcement. 2 weeks after I resigned, to go back to school full time, my wife lost her job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we, had a baby and, not a young family, but she was young. I mean, my daughter now is only 9 years old. So a real young daughter, 4 or 5 years old at the time. Right. Man, I don't know how the hell I did it, to be honest with you. We lived in a little ass apartment for a long time. We were on assistance. I'm not going to lie to you. We reached a very low point in my life and our life together. Made it through undergrad. Went away as an accounting student. What I didn't realize was how successful Appalachian State accounting program was. Went away, did some good things with it. Had a job offer for Grant Thornton with numbers that I never dreamed of reaching as a starting position. Countered that, and then, one thing that I tell everybody: know your worth. Right? I countered that their first offer, and the managing partner was right there and signed off on it. Well more money than my wife and I had ever dreamed of making combined. I was, made an offer there. Came back to Boone, North Carolina. And if anybody knows Western North Carolina, we're pretty big in the beer scene, right? Boone has some good breweries out here. Had followed a local brewery for a while. To do a start, I was probably one of the first customers in the door. Just happened to be that one of the founders and the CEO at the time was a Marine or ex-Marine. Obviously, him and I hit it off, and I came back to town, and he sent me a message, and just being very, very transparent of how we can be on this show. He's like, meet me at the Marriott, the Courtyard. And I'm like, dude, I'm not like that. He's bullshitting with him. He's like, no, man, this is business, nothing funky. Let's just meet and have a cup of coffee. And I met with him, and he was very honest. He's like, man, I need your help, but I can't afford you. And I'm like, dude, I don't know a fucking thing about accounting. I know what the book tells you, but I don't know, I don't know beer. I know it's good to drink. Right. So then, there's a lot of things in life you gotta do that you just do. And as a guy that spent some time in the Army and in law enforcement, I had never made what I was worth for a paycheck, right? And I told him, I said, dude, I don't give a shit if you need crane carried or floor swept. I don't, we're not doing well, but I can put food on the table thanks to some government assistance and what I was getting in the GI Bill and keeping the roof over my head and shit like that. But I don't, hell, man, I'm here to help. I know I knew enough about business to know that a startup brewery is not making a killing. I mean, these guys went from their garage to that. So I started as their controller / compliance officer. I knew shit about filing reports or even producing financial statements, but it was, jumped my feet in the door. I had a great support system. I had some great mentors. A year later, I produced financial statements that were reviewed, that went into the public market, was released to our stockholders. And that's when he did the press release. He announced me as a CFO, and I sent him a text, and I'm like, what? Hey, am I getting promoted? He's like, yeah, but you ain't getting a goddamn dime more because we don't have it. I'm like, yeah, man, I get it, but definitely appreciate the little promotion. So I did 4 years at the brewery as publicly traded. I would like to say we seen this writing on the wall, but we did a little bit. The beer market was getting very crunched. I've sat in a lot of very high level and very low level meetings about what is going on with our sales, what's our volume, what's that sort of thing. And the writing's there, man. I mean, even to the day, anybody that reaches out to me and says, I'm going to start a brewery, first thing I want to know is how much do you think you're going to make a year? Because if it's anything more than a couple $100,000 a year and just enough to put a roof over your head, fucking forget it, man. Take whatever money you're going to invest in it and go burn it. Because that is the beer market today. It is very, very tough to grow a beer company like that organically without just stupid rich money. I mean, it takes a lot of money and a very high risk. So that was my start in the beer industry. It was great. Through a transaction, sold our assets to Craft Brew Alliance, which is a much larger brewery, and now the brewery is owned by Anheuser-Busch. So, yeah, and it's been fun. I learned a lot and learned a damn ton of it. I learned enough to realize I didn't want to be a part of the transition from where we were at as Appalachian Mountain Brewery to becoming, and working for CBA or Anheuser-Busch. I couldn't, at the level that I was at, you had to get on I might as well stayed in public accounting, to be honest with you. You get on a plane on Monday and you maybe come back for the weekend or not. So, and with a young daughter, that's definitely not the lifestyle that I wanted to live. But it was an interesting, very steep learning curve. I definitely didn't do everything perfect, but I don't know many people that could say they did, right? But
Man,
we
but that's
definitely learned.
impressive. That's impressive, you know, because the only reason why you got to that point is because even that you didn't know what the fuck you were doing years ago or when you started, you know, like eventually you just kept moving forward and you just, okay, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it and see what happens, you know. And that's pretty much what entrepreneurs does. You know?
Yeah.
Like it's like I don't know all the answers, I don't know what to do, and that's how pretty much I started my career too as an entrepreneur. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with this. I went to college too. We have the same background. I fucking hated school. You know, the only time I enjoyed studying was when I was in college studying marketing and all that stuff, which
Yeah.
you never work at the end because I never got my degree or anything. As I fucked it, I quit it, you know, because I just hated it. But I was having fun studying marketing. But the same, and like everything that I have started in my life for the past 5-7 years is just like I don't know what I'm doing, you know. Like I'm just gonna
Yeah.
start it and start building something from scratch, and that's really what puts you on the radar for other people to start looking at what you're doing and all that kind of stuff. So that's a very impressive story, man. Like I really, this is why you are here, because you just didn't make any excuses, right?
Yeah, definitely appreciate it. I knew where the brewery was at. I knew I couldn't make it any worse. You know, one thing that I learned very early in my Army career, reading a book from Colin Powell, was you got to fucking surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. And if you're afraid of that, get the fuck out of whatever you're doing. Just quit. Sit on the couch and just do nothing in life. If you're afraid to hire somebody that's smarter than you got issues and you're not going to be successful. And the first thing I did was hired a controller to work for me that had, I mean, that lady probably had 40 years of controller experience. She knew more about fucking accounting than half my professors that were teaching it. I mean, you got to hire. And the kid that I hired to be the brewery operations manager is now a professor. So in accounting. So you gotta surround yourself with smarter people than you, man. And that is why I was successful where I was at. Definitely wasn't because of what I knew, but I knew enough of how to steer the ship in the direction it needed to go. And I knew enough to surround myself with people that were smarter than me. That's what I knew.
You know,
it's kind of the same way today.
Yeah, you're completely right, you know, because that's the reason why one of the things that we always talk about in this show, and one of the things that I do through my companies and my Facebook group and all that stuff is just that sense of community, of network, you know, because the only reason why I've been able also to be where I am today is because I'm surrounded by people who's doing way better than me, you know. Like I'm probably I'm probably the poorest guy in the room, you know, when I go to these meetups with my network, because I have people around me that they have several companies, they own 8-9 figures a year companies and stuff like that, you know, and being there, learning from them is what been helping me to build my business too, you know. And I think the craft beer industry, it is kind of like separated from those places, you know. I think that sense of like, okay, we need to start networking, we need to start bringing people from different industries so we can learn what others are doing so we can implement it. I think it's something that is very important to start speaking about in the industry, you know. Would you agree?
Yeah, man, I, for sure. You know, don't get me wrong. There's definitely a place out there for new breweries, but the challenge is how do you differentiate yourself, and realize it's not. You know, I know that I'm preaching to the choir with the room that you have in that group, but you don't get rich overnight. I mean, it is not, we're well past that in the craft beer stage. You know, a lot of people would tell you we're kind of on the downslope of craft beer just because there's so many other options out there right now. And I will say that I tend to agree with them, but that doesn't mean that you can't make your own space. You've got to be smart about it. You've got to have realistic expectations. You've got to make sure that you have your operational cash that you need outside of the initial investment to get going. You've got to do the right things, get the right people around you. The thing that trips most of the craft brewers up that I meet and speak to that are starting breweries, they're very good at making great liquid, right? But when they talk to smart business people, it intimidates them. And that's where they fail, because they don't surround themselves by smart business people. They think they can just make great liquid and be successful. That doesn't happen anymore. I mean, there's great liquid at every fucking corner in America right now,
Yeah.
made by somebody.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because we have talked a little bit about that before, but I really want to expand more with you into this, because somebody like in my another guest, that's what he said. He's like, like 10 years ago, the industry was about who's making the best beer, but now it's about who's running the best business, who have the best business practices. You mentioned about surrounding yourself with the right people, right? But based on your experience, man, let's say that I'm a brewery owner right now. Somebody's watching this, they own a brewery. They are in between that, like, I don't know where to take my business. Like, COVID has fucked me over and over again this year, but I know that there's something I can do. Like, besides surrounding yourself with the right people, what would be some other advice you can give to somebody right now who's ready to start taking the brewery to a different direction, to the right direction, what is the social media, building your presence and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, obviously you've got to be comfortable with the fact that you're not the smartest guy, right? If you have a problem with the thought of somebody being smarter than you that works for you, it's not. You got to look at what you have and try to offload, because you're not going to get any further. If you don't have people in the room, in your conversations, in your meetings that are smarter than you got to get some people in there. Business people. If you make great liquid, then that's what you need to concentrate on. But if you're horrible at running a business, you got to get somebody in there to run it. If you haven't made decisions that's put you in a position to get on that packaged beer load that's happened in the COVID thing, then you got to get somebody in there that understands how to get on that, right? How to be the person in front of it. And don't be afraid to admit that you failed at that. If you've got your people surrounded, if you've got those people already around you, you're making great liquid, you feel like you do well with a team, man, just like we've done at Hops News, you got to get in front of your audience, man. During the shutdown, people were clamoring, how do we stay engaged? And we talked about it. How do you engage your consumer? You've got to engage your consumer. That's just the bottom line. And it's not nothing against marketing folks. I love them to death, but it's beyond marketing. It's beyond the logo. It's beyond what our can looks like. It's beyond, the Oscar blues back there in the background with some bright, 6-packs behind me and that sort of thing. It's kind of beyond that sort of game, right? Because everybody's doing it, and the big guys are spending millions of dollars on a brand just to do that right. It's about engaging your customers, man. If your customers, if the people drinking your liquid don't know your brewer, what the fuck are you doing? They don't. I mean, really, if your customer doesn't know why that liquid is in that can, what are you doing? Right. You've missed a complete opportunity to let your consumer know why we made this beer. And I will tell you, this is one thing that when I first started at the brewery, social media and that whole live thing was very new.
Right.
Periscope was very new, right? That was kind of the first thing that I believe came out with Twitter. And I tried to get the guys on board then. We did a few things with it, but they just weren't sold into what was going on. Right. One of their favorite beers that they brewed was a coffee IPA. When I found out about the story of how that beer was created?
How?
About a year ago. And how long has it been? I mean, it was a simple story, man. One of the guys from Fontaflora that you may know of, Fontaflora Brewery down in Morganton, walked in with a thermal cup that had coffee in it. They was brewing our IPA, our flagship IPA, and they asked him if he wanted to try some. He poured it in there, had a little bit of coffee residue in it, and he's like, God damn. But nobody knows the story.
Right.
Nobody knows that story, and nobody sat down to say this is the story. But even me thinking about it now, I'm like, man, I can, I wasn't there, but I can see that conversation. It just makes you a part of the conversation. It makes I know what went into this liquid, man. And like I said, in a market, I mean, you see that shelf space behind you, man. Tell me where you're going to fit your beer. Right. In the new brewery. Where are you going to fit your beer? There's no fucking space, man, unless you have tens of thousands of dollars to throw at whatever supermarket this is, because anybody that's in the beer business knows the supermarket's where you need to be. If you want to make money, you have to be in a supermarket. And it's just, simple things like that, man. If your consumers don't intimately know your brewers and know why they're doing things, you're just throwing marketing money after bad money. There's no rhyme or reason behind it. People love stories, dude. Look at YouTube of what's going on at YouTube. I mean, they've got their own damn TV channel now. I mean, they're doing their own YouTube TV where you can subscribe and watch all the big networks. So
yeah,
I just think that simple content like you and I are doing today, you hit a live button and we're live. Why not get a brewer down here under your brand and tell you why he's made his new release beer that's going to release on Thursday? Listen,
totally.
But one thing's got to be very clear. There's no overnight successes, right? Even what we've done at Hops News, it hasn't been an overnight success. It's not where I anticipate it being. You have to be consistent. You have to provide content like you're doing. You're a very good example of it. You got to keep grinding. You don't see the numbers right away, but you have to just keep doing it. And over time, those numbers and those viewers will come. Engaging customers is key.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. Two things. First, you said like YouTube channel, like YouTube is like a TV channel now, right? But like we were talking before we started the show, like pretty much our social media channels are like our own TV channel, like literally you can go, like you said, for free, click the live button and literally start talking about your story, literally start talking about that beer that you're going to release next week and all that kind of stuff. And people is going to get engaged. And the other part of this that is important, like you said too, is going to take time, especially with social media. And here's one thing that nobody tells everybody, like one of the reasons why all this takes time on social media, because right now we all in social media, right? You're not the only guy trying to advertise. You and me, we're not the only guys trying to do a beer show. There's plenty of other beer shows that I have seen out there, right? Like there's plenty of podcasts. There's plenty of people trying to sell their products. But what happened is that you have to focus on your market and you have to focus on who's the people you want to attract to your brewery, right? So while you focus on that, then you can start putting the right message in front of them. But it has to be consistently. And the reason why is because we are exposed to over like 10,000 pieces of advertisement daily. It's not that people don't like your shit. It is that people is overwhelmed with so many pieces of advertisement that it's hard for them to make a freaking decision, right? So that consistency can take 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, depends on how good you are. And that's the reason why, like you were saying too, it's important to develop business skills. It's important to be surrounded with people who is making that stuff happening, right? So that way you can learn how to do it. But because people is not liking your stuff, because people is not commenting your stuff, it doesn't mean they're not watching you. People is watching you,
Yeah. Yeah. And what most people, whether they don't realize or just fail to realize it takes, if you're going to grow a page on Facebook, just people liking it, it takes money, right? I mean, you can, unless you're a fad that hits really hard and you explode overnight, that's great. But that's one, I mean, you fucking go stand on the street and wait to get struck by lightning. That's a better chance of that happening than you becoming that fad that blows up overnight. That's not me, man. I'm not going to wait. I don't wait for shit. You got to go find it and do it yourself. You got to be consistent and you got to take advantage of what the platforms want to do. The platforms want you to throw money at them to be able to grow your page numbers, your followers, your likes, your subscriptions, whatever the hell it is. That's what they want you to do. What Facebook wants is eyes on the Facebook app at all times. Whatever they can do to get their eyes. So just like I said, the easy thing is hit the fucking go live button on your page once in a while. Guess what happens? Everybody that does like your page is told you're going live because Facebook wants them to see it. Even if it's just for a few seconds, Facebook wants them to open their app and say, this is, because I can tell you, I've not been involved in the conversations on the end of big advertising for Facebook, but I can assure you part of those conversations is the average citizen in the United States spends this much time on Facebook. And the more that number gets bigger, the more those advertising dollars for those big companies and big agencies grows. It's just, and you're doing what they want to do. I mean, we chat a little bit about it. The big 3 and 4 letter networks that are out there, dude, in a decade, if they're around, I'll be surprised. But they'll be to a point where you can't watch them on cable. The only way you're seeing them as well is by streaming them. just because that is where everybody's going. I think that if you're able to produce it, and that's kind of what started us. We started with some webcams at Hops News, and kind of went the podcast route, and then with some webcams. And I soon realized, man, you don't have to be a goddamn NBC studio to produce quality shit. I mean, not to say that mine right now is the best quality. It's good quality. I think it's it represents probably most radio stations and most video studios right now. But and this is shit that we've taken it on the road. We've walked into breweries and said, hey man, let's talk about beer, and broke out a couple of cases and put up some good cameras. And I will tell you that one thing that got me started in this was I seen the brewery that I worked for. The second week of the shutdown was trying to stream a concert that sounded like somebody yelling in a fucking trash can. And I sent the guy that was a good buddy, and I could send him this, and I said, dude, you fucking sound just like trash, man. I said, nobody on Facebook can even understand what the fuck is going on in that brewery other than you, and that's because you're there. He said, yeah, can you help? I said, I'll help by starting to give you a damn mic just to set in the middle of the room and to go from there. They tried that. I said, dude, just let me know when you want help. I can help you out. I mean, it's nothing more than podcasters have done for years, right? Just make everything go through a board that's digital. And that's kind of what got me started. One of the last concerts, and we always raised money for them. That's part of the 40,000 that we've helped raise at a local level altogether. One of the last concerts we did, Luke Combs is an Appalachian State alum. So there's always conversation, around music and Boone with Luke Combs. And some of you may have heard of Luke Combs a time or two. The last night we were doing a concert, we were streaming it. Man, it fucking sounded like you were, dude, it sounded, we had it dialed in. And somebody in the chat said something to the effect, go take a listen to Luke Combs. You guys are, like 10 billion times better sounding than what he is right now. So I ran around the back of the brewery. I pulled up Luke Combs' feed, and it actually sounded like they did the first night, like he was screaming in a fucking trash can. So I just say that to say it's not cheap. Obviously, you know it, in the equipment that you have and invested in that sort of thing. But there's people out there that will definitely help you step up your quality. And it's a small investment to make to get in front of your consumers. What you don't want to do as a brewery is put a camera, right, a cell phone in front of your face that's bobbling all over the place and, looking like you're, running out of an amateur show out of your pocket. But it's not difficult, and it's not very expensive to do it right, to set up, the scene, to stage it right, to get some graphics in there, to do the right thing that needs to be done. We've worked, to go from the concert to helping out some friends to doing, Hops News Hoppy Hour every Thursday night live feed to, we've worked with Total Wine. We've done some streaming work with those guys and done some launches for those, and those conversations are still open with us. So to me, man, engaging your consumer on a live platform, for one, Facebook is going to tell your follower and your listener when you're live, and two, you can interact with them. And I think the interaction is one of the most important. We open up all of ours to questions and comments, and we reply, and we thank people for chiming in. And, people like that, man. I mean, whether you realize it or not, if you're a brewer, people look up to you. There's some people that idolize you, some people that's what they want to be when they grow up, right? And do not ignore a comment, for Christ's sakes. If you're a brewer that's up and coming and somebody comments on your post, don't ignore it. Deep down inside, you're like, fuck, somebody commented. 10 people commented on our post today, or liked it, or God damn it, go and answer them. Take a minute when you lay down in the bed at night that you're looking at your damn phone anyways, and answer them. At least thank them for being engaged. Engage your consumer. I mean, you think about this. If these big companies engage their consumers at that level, think about what would happen to their sales. Imagine if Ford hired a whole goddamn office filled with people that did nothing but replied to comments.
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
Yeah. Sales going to go through the roof.
Yeah, man. Engage your goddamn customer. All these companies, all these social media companies are an open door, and I see it all the time. Even on some good people that I know are running good breweries, I'll even make a comment and just slide through it, and I'm like, dude, just like their comment or something, man. Engage your damn customer so they feel like they're important. Because people buy into shit like that more than anything, man. And that is, to me, that is part of engaging your customers. It goes well beyond marketing and looking pretty, but you got to engage that customer and you got to keep them engaged. I mean, I'm not telling your audience anything you guys don't know. There's a dollar sign to every new customer. If you don't engage, yeah, if you don't engage that fucking customer, you just piss that money away. They're not just going to keep buying because they bought once. That's not the way it works. That's not the way sales cycle works. Everybody knows that. You got to engage them. And one of the cheapest things you can do is just continue it. Continue to engage them, whether it's content or replying or liking or whatever. But you got to engage that customer. You're going to lose them. And you're just pissing away the money.
Yeah, which reminds me, like you said, like that's not just the whole sales process, right? The whole sales cycle. You have your acquisition, you have your retention. Like you said, you see a customer, like it's not that you're just gonna see a customer just like a dollar sign. You go, of course, you're gonna see the value of you have a customer, but you have to understand that you can make not only one sale from each of your customers, you can make 5, 10. Who knows how many other sales you do if you keep engaging with your audience, if you keep serving them, especially in 2020. What you just said is completely right. You know, like from the marketing trends and all that stuff, how people just want to be more engaged, want to be part of your process, want to be part of your company. They want to feel part of your brewery, you know. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I remember somebody mentioned, I don't remember where it was. I saw that comment. I think it was a comment, but someone was saying that a lot of people think, you know, like the consumer, when they think about a brewery, when they think about a tap room, they think it's like a funny job to have, you know. But I think the guy was like a waitress. I think she was a waitress or something, and she was like, people have no clue how hard this job is, you know. But yeah, probably it's a hard job, but you have to understand that the consumer doesn't see it that way. The consumer sees people who works in the brewery as like pretty much heroes. Like, oh, that's a cool job. I would love to freaking work in the brewery and drink beer all day long, right?
Yeah, that's definitely, you know, if you're real with your customers, they, you know, just like you said, most of them think it's some glamorous job where a guy's just drinking beer fucking all day and that's what he does. But what they don't see is the guy standing at the kettle mashing in and going through all of that fucking bullshit and the heat and the whatever that they're dealing with, the conditions that they're dealing with. Obviously, there's guys out there that are, you know, working for big breweries that are pushing buttons and standing behind, you know, a control room and that sort of thing. But, you know, most of these guys are carrying grain themselves. They don't have grain silos or dragging bags of grain, and they're fucking running pipes and hoses and everything else. It is, and if you're a brewery and that's what you're doing, fucking show your consumer. Show them. Just show them. God damn. And that's one thing that I don't see. You see some time lapse shit every once in a while of a packaging and cans sliding down. It's like, oh, our new canning line. Well, fucking show the guy scratching his head for 6 months trying to figure out how he's going to goddamn pay for it. Right. Show the guy scratching his head, figuring out how he's going to get it commissioned because it's not working the way the fucking manufacturer said it was going to work. Show that shit. Be real about what it is that you, I mean, dude, be real. I mean, I've listened to your show enough to realize be real and be genuine and people will come, man. There is no doubt about it. Just show them that. Let people talk about it. Let the brewers share it. Let your packaging guys talk about it. Let your people that are standing behind the bar saying, man, this fucking sucks because I'm not getting shit for tips and that's how I pay my rent.
Yeah.
No, I mean, right. Let them talk about it.
Absolutely. Now, besides, because I know that you've been able to grow your hops news like to the point where it is right now, you know, like in a very short period of time. And I know that one of the things that you have done or the strategies that you have used for that is, like you said, the engagement, right? Like engage with your people, engage with your audience, let them participate in the live streams that you do with the happy hours and all that kind of stuff. Plus, of course, you know, that it is attractive when you help others and you're raising money to help different breweries and all that kind of stuff. But what are some of the other important strategies that you have implemented to keep growing your hops news?
Yeah, I will. Most important, the single most important, the reason why Hops News was started was to share the success stories of breweries that were doing the right things in their communities, right? Breweries, and this goes across, and this is not even brewery. I spent a year as a business advisor for the state, and I would go into some machine shops, and they were fucking hurting. And the first thing out of my mouth was, "What do you do for your community?" The very first thing. What do you do for your community? When I was growing up, I grew up in Michigan. My grandfathers and uncles all were raised or all worked in the cereal manufacturing. I had an uncle that worked in automotive. But we knew as a community, we knew what the hell went on in those factories because those factories were a big part of our community. Try that now. Drive past your local factory, your local warehouse space, and you answer yourself, what the fuck do they do in there? You don't know.
You don't know. Yeah.
Nine times out of 10, people have no fucking idea what's going on in that factory, what they make, what is going on, if they're looking for help, if anything like that. So I tell everybody, you gotta, man, if you're not giving back to your community, what are you doing, man? There was some early times in the brewery, we gave more back to nonprofits than we made in salaries, right? Let that sink in a minute. More money was being delivered to nonprofits in the area than the entire fucking company made in salaries or payroll or hourly, whatever you want to call it, but more in that than payroll expense. So if that is not a part of your business model, I don't care if you're a brewery, if you're a guy that's fixing roofs, if you're doing whatever it is that you're doing, you're not going to be successful. The chances of you being successful are very slim. You've got to be a part of that. I think that was kind of our motto, and that is still what we stick to at Hops News. Is every episode we feature a nonprofit. Facebook's got a great donation feature set up in their live streams. You just hit the donation button and you type in a nonprofit, and most of those guys have what it is that they need. We've worked with some great ones and done some great things with some companies and some nonprofits. Another thing that I've done is, man, I've got a team of 4 co-hosts that's throughout the world, right? I send them equipment. We exchange good beer. A lot of these guys and girls are smarter at a lot of shit that we talk about than I am. Or I don't know fucking beer, man. I'll be honest with you. I drink a lot of beer, but I don't know beer like those guys do. I can't keep up with the styles and the trends and all. I mean, I smoke cigars and I couldn't fucking tell you, but I don't know what style or brand of cigars I like. I just know what they look like, right? I can't tell you the different wrappers and all that shit because I don't have time to dive like that, into something that's just an enjoyment for me. And so these guys, I mean, they know beer. I mean, they know the up and coming brewers. I mean, somebody mentions a beer on the show or in the chat, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's a fuck. I've been there." I'm like, where the fuck is it at? So again, I've brought in people. So 2016 is when I started it. I made the mistake early in Hops News was relying on a big crew to make it happen.
Right.
Life happened. I think we were about a half dozen episodes into it, and it just started to seem like, man, this is fuck, man. I spend more time trying to make sure these guys are going to show up than I do on myself, and that's when it just started to become hell. But a couple of years ago, I was like, man, this is the brand, the what we started is just too good to let it die. I needed help. I didn't want to get to a point again where I relied on help. But I just put myself out there, man. I'm like, hey, if you're interested in being a part of what we've done, let me know. Overwhelming response. I mean, I've definitely turned more people away than that are currently involved right now, but just get those people involved. Our listeners now, we've got a Patreon set up where we do some beer exchanges. I'm probably not, if the FBI wants to come and waste their time on me, we're probably part of what's kept the Postal Service in business recently is sending beer back and forth to each other through the mail. But yeah, I think that just engaging our listeners, like I said, we've got a few followers and I try to like and comment on everybody. And that's one thing that I've told these guys from the very beginning. I'll give you access to social media accounts and I don't mind sharing passwords and that sort of fucking thing to you, but please don't ignore somebody. Right. I have a hard time if somebody takes their time to make a comment. if you don't have 2 seconds to even like it, what I find that hard to believe, man. And that's one thing, you know, and like I said, we're not done where we're at, and we've got a long ways to go. You know, we're going to be involved in some grand openings, and we've done some live streams at some breweries and that sort of thing. But I think helping these breweries tell their stories, like we talked about, I don't think that breweries do a very good job with that, and they definitely typically don't have the technical or the equipment to make it look professional. But that is what we do, man, and that's how we engage our listeners, is just being a part of them, listening to them. We've got a group that's set up for them that they can be a part of. You know, I opened up the Patreon, to be honest with you. I'm like, man, ain't nobody fucking gonna sign up for our Patreon. The highest level that I had was like $25. And the next morning I woke up and there was a guy that was already signed up for the highest level. And I'm like, wow, are you fucking what? And I'm just, you know, at that point, I'm like, well, that, you know, I'll be honest with you. We've raised a fuck ton of money. I mean, just locally, what we've helped out was over $40,000 through the COVID thing. Our online streams, we were north of $2,000. We're probably really close to 3,000. I just haven't updated that number yet. But yeah, and now, you know, I'm able to, we're definitely paying our Libsyn fees, and we're paying all of that type of hosting and sort of thing fees. We're developing a new website now. I'm able to send these guys some equipment. You know, everybody's got some updated equipment and that sort of thing. But you know, we got other conversations that are still in the work. Total Wine is still on the hook. They want to talk more about what we can help them do as well. But I think just engaging your customer, man. I don't care if you're a podcast or if you're a brewer or if you're a guy that's making vehicles. If you're trying to penetrate that market, that's the best thing you could do. Don't ignore those people, man. And I have a couple other businesses, and I try to fucking pound that in these jarheads' mind every day. It's like, man, if you don't fucking hug them after you make a delivery, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah. What are you doing, man? That's the guy that pays your salary. And you know it just as well as I do. You hear, you know, you get feedback from your customers like, man, this guy was kind of rude. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? I'm not above wiping my feet to enter somebody's house. Do I need to take off my boots? Because you're getting ready to write a hell of a check for what I'm getting ready to do to you. I'll take my boots off. You know, absolutely. I think you gotta do it, man. You gotta put yourself out there. You gotta be willing to make that customer feel like they're a part of you, and that they're your biggest spokesperson. I tell the people all the time, you can spend all the money you want in advertising, but if you get people selling yourself for you, fuck, man, you've got it made. But I think just being a part of that and getting that culture into your organization is the right thing to do.
Absolutely. And there's two things that you mentioned right now, very important. First, when you started at Hops News again, you know, and then you started going through people so you can put a team together, you know, like you mentioned something very important. You decided, I mean, you chose those 4 people because you know exactly what people you wanted to keep around you and for your business too. And I think that's important for everything, like narrows down to who you want, what marketing company you want to work with what accountant you want to work with, and all that kind of stuff is very important. You know, you cannot just go right off the bat and pick whoever comes first. You know, I think that's very important for any business. And second, I think everything that you're doing with Hops News can be a great example. I mean, for you guys in the craft beer industry, if you're listening to this, like if you try to figure out how you can get your story out there, how you can engage more people. I mean, the way you're doing it is very simple. Like you didn't even have to go to college to study for this shit. Like you just start doing it, and then you figure out that, you know, the engagement is what keeps people in your platform, what keeps people sending money for those donations, and it's how you've been able to help these breweries to put their name out there, right? But even that's great. I believe that I'm sure that you want to bring as many brewers as possible to your show too. Yep. Right. But I think it's also a great example of what they can follow in their businesses, you know, like, they can come to you like, hey man, can you feature our beer or whatever the case may be, but also use this as an example to implement in your brewery. Success leave clues, like follow what other people are doing, you know?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's kind of funny you say that. I'll go back to my business advising hat that I spent time in doing. One of the common things that I always heard from a client was, my accountant sucks. What the fuck have you done to change it? Right? What have you done? And I will tell you, the first fucking thing that I tell them is get a list. I don't give a shit how you screen that list. Get a list. You put them all on an email. one email together, blind copied, whatever you want to do, put them all on a fucking email together and say, hey, I'm looking for a new account and let's talk. You talk to the first 3 that reply, because I don't give a fuck how big the company is. If that asshole doesn't have time to reply to you looking for new business for 2 days, that's not your goddamn accountant. Because once he's got you on the hook, if you think he's going to reply within a timely manner for your request for information, you're sadly mistaken. You got to be timely, man. And I will tell you, that is great that you say that, because I've had that conversation with so many clients, man. My marketing firm doesn't respond. My accountant doesn't respond. You want to make them respond? Put on a blind carbon copy to say, hey, we're shopping out our next fucking year's gig. And all you guys can't see each other, but this is what I'm doing. And your first 2 or 3 that reply, invite them in for a meeting. Because if somebody's not replying to you within a couple of hours, this is one thing, man. Everybody's got one of these fucking things nowadays. This is nothing new, right? Your email goes to that. If I send somebody an email, especially somebody that I'm looking to spend some money with, and they don't fucking reply to me, I don't care if it's a Friday or a Saturday or whatever it may be. If they don't reply to me within a few hours, that's not who I'm doing my business with. Because if that's what they're doing, looking for customers, when they got you, it's only going to be worse, man. Engaging, man. You just got to engage them. Even if they're not a paying customer and they only have the potential to be, you got to engage them. You got to be timely and you got to engage them, man. Yeah, that goes across the board. I don't care if you're looking for a marketing guy, if you're looking for a fucking same way if somebody applies for a job and you email them and they don't email you back right away within a decent, fuck, man, move on. That's just how they're going to work for you. I will tell you that is just how they are going to work for you. If you don't get a response within a timely manner, and when they do respond, you question, why would it fucking take somebody that long that's looking for a job to respond? If that crosses your mind, do not hire them.
Absolutely. Do not hire them. And then don't blame whatever goes wrong on that people when you are the one that made that decision too. You know, it's like now that you mentioned that, I have a friend that he talks about his hiring process, you know, and they actually have different key indicators for the process, you know, like they put the announcement or they put it on social media and all that stuff, right? And then they send that email and they receive an email, or they see, okay, the next step is this, okay? And if you don't do the next step, I mean, you're out. And people still don't follow. So they don't waste their time trying to hire people that is not the right people and the right fit for them. And I think, like you said, that apply for the people you want to hire for your marketing and for other areas on your business. You have to be the right fit. Like in the same way your customers needs to be the right fit for you, also the people you want to work with or services that you want to hire have to be the right fit for you as well. But anyway, man, we've been here for almost an hour. So I think it's time to start wrapping this up. Man, you've been sharing some great stuff here, and I like and appreciate you being real. But before we close this up, man, what would be one last piece of advice that you can give everybody listening right now? Because I know right now we're in crazy times. We pretty much 2020 is over. We don't know what's going to happen in 2021. But, you know, one of the things that I do is I start preparing already for next year. You know, I already have a plan. I already have everything written down. I know where I'm going, you know. So, yeah. And reality is that it doesn't matter if we keep going with all this COVID bullshit or whatever happens after the election. Like it's kind of like a little bit of uncertainty out there. I'm going to keep doing what I have to do, what I can control, that is build my businesses, you know. So yeah. What will be one piece of advice that you can give to people right now just to close the year stronger and make sure that they can start moving towards more digital and start engaging that people and to really start putting the name out there and start being afraid of doing it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Not to get political, but realize who's making decisions that are hurting you, man, especially as a brewer. North Carolina, we've been fucking hammered by some illogical decisions going on up here. Realize the decisions that are being made and who's making those decisions for you. Frankly, I don't give a fuck what side you lean, whether you're conservative or liberal, but realize who's making that decision. What political office is it that they hold and their leanings? That is the issue with all of it. The sad thing about this is I get COVID is real. I've lost a dear friend to COVID. Him and I would fly to Arizona every other year and smoke a cigar at our favorite cigar shop out there just to be close to each other. Lost him to COVID. He knew he was high risk. He fits the exact profile. We're gonna lose more people to poverty from the shutdowns than COVID will ever claim. And I will tell you, if you do any sort of building, look at the building prices, the prices for building materials right now, and tell me who that's living in poverty can afford those. Because I do pretty fucking well, and it's hitting me pretty goddamn hard with what it is that we're doing. And I will tell you, it's affecting decisions in big organizations right now, whether they're going to build. But think about the family that's got to buy that piece of plywood to put, to cover the hole in their roof. Dude, it fucking breaks my wallet to go buy a piece of plywood right now. Those guys can't afford it. I just realize the decisions that are being made and understand the offices that are making those and do it, man, because I will tell you, I know a lot of good breweries that haven't, here in North Carolina, they just recently were able to start getting people back into their tap rooms. Wow. Just recently. And it's absurd, man. I just don't understand the motivation behind it. But, understand what pays your bills, how you make money, and understand the offices that are making those decisions. Because I think people, if they were honest with themselves, would be very surprised at who they support and what it is that they're trying to push along. Because it's not who they think is doing them a favor that's doing them a favor. They have to open up their eyes. Whether they realize it or not, those decisions affect what they're going to do in business. And I hate to get on a political tangent, but that it's timely for the times, right? Because it is on everybody's mind, and especially up here in North Carolina, we've been fucking hamstrung by what's going on up here. So, and we're not, North Carolina's got a lot of great breweries. Natty Green's just down the road from us. I don't know if you've heard of those guys. Those guys have been a goddamn powerhouse in the craft beer industry for a while. One of our brewers, a guy that worked for us for a while, we picked him out of Natty Greens because those guys were doing so well. They're done. No more brewing operations. That's yeah, and I will tell you, we're not going to see the last of it. People will be surprised at some of the big breweries that fall, but it's just fucking piss poor decisions that's been made about the shutdowns and all this other bullshit that really, at the end of the day, isn't going to affect the outcome of any of this bullshit. We're still going to lose people. Businesses now are going to be closed, and the poverty level is fucking going to skyrocket over the next few years. But that's the reality of it, man. You can sugarcoat it all you want. But that's what it's going to come down to, especially for a lot in the beer business. It's going to hit these guys pretty damn hard. And packaged beer has been great for a while. But I will tell you that supply chain, if you're not making the decision or choices right now to get away from cans, aluminum cans, you're fucking, man, you're aluminum cans were hard when I was in it. I can't imagine where they're going to be after all these shutdowns. And people I'm not preaching to the choir. These guys know there's only a few companies that actually produce aluminum cans for breweries. Right. So I just say that you got to realize what it is that you're supporting and make those right decisions, man. And if you're not looking at your supply chain to figure out how you get around things, it's going to happen, man. Supply chains are going to become a real issue for people, and then those prices are going to fucking skyrocket, and only the wealthy that can afford it are going to survive. The rest are not going to change and adapt quick enough to make those changes. But if you're a brewery that's doing aluminum cans right now, you might want to think about that, because that's probably going to be the first thing that hits people.
Yeah, and channels of distribution too. I think they're definitely changing. So just pay attention to what's coming, like predict the future, like predict whatever trend is coming, and you just start adapting right now at the early stage, not when everything finally shifts and then you don't know what the fuck to do, So I think that's a really good point, man. But anyway, man, where people can find you if somebody wants to reach out to you, maybe they want to jump in your show and maybe reach out to you for some help and get some exposure, where people can find you, man.
Yeah, Hops News, that's an easy one for us, at Hops News on all the socials, right? On Twitter, the Instagram, the Facebook. I'm at jbrew at hopsnews.beer is my email address. You can find me there. I'm in your group, so feel free to hit me up. I I don't have a side gig of consulting of sorts, but I can definitely help out if anybody hits me up and wants any information, depending on, how in depth it is. But yeah, man, I mean, just follow us there, like us, whatever it is. You can find us there. You can reach out to me. I mean, if you hit up any of those social media accounts, it'll be me on the other end of it. If it's not me, somebody else will get me in touch with you. But yeah, pretty easy to find. It's not, Hops News is not,
Yeah.
if it's anything to do with Hops News, it's us, because we've owned it for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like the name. It's catchy and it's easy to remember it too,
Yeah,
So
for sure. And
awesome.
the start of that, Hops was our stock ticker identifier on the market that we were on as a brewery. Was Hops was the ticker. So that's how it all got started. But it's turned into something much bigger than that. But
that's nice, man. Well, you say you never know where some idea can take you, So that's
yeah,
that's the beauty of, like, you have an idea, just go for it. Like, you never know where that can take you. So
yeah, for sure. Hey,
awesome,
man, and before we go, I appreciate you, man. And I've told you this before, and I'll say it again. I appreciate what you're doing for the beer industry and being real about it, because beer is sexy as fuck to the consumers, but underneath the hood, and then what happens, it's raw as hell, man. And there is people right now that it is as raw as it's ever going to be for them. But definitely appreciate what you're doing for the beer industry, because I hope the people that are thinking about entering the beer industry or starting their own brewery find you first, because they might take that money and go do something else. Or if everything goes well, they're going to take that money and make much wiser decisions, because it's not an easy game right now, and it's only going to get more tough. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that, man. I really try to do my best to create all this content, and get people here that can share the story, their experience, their expertise, and everything, so others can learn, because that's how I've been able to learn. That's how I've been able to get into different industries, like start marketing for breweries, like get into real estate and do a lot of other stuff, because for content like this that other people distribute in other networks, So really appreciate your work, man. Thank you so much. And for you guys listening, if you enjoyed the show, make sure you share it with somebody. Put it on social media, send a DM, a text message, email, whatever you can do to help us spread the word. And also make sure you leave us a review on iTunes and subscribe to the YouTube channel, guys, so more people can find the show and get access to all this valuable information. I will see you guys in the next episode. In the meantime, be safe, keep working hard, and cheers. Later, brother.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you.
Hey guys, thank you for watching. This show was brought to you by the Marketing Brewing Company, an industry-leading marketing provider and coaching firm. If this episode have provided you with valuable information for you and your business, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you know somebody who needs to hear this, share it with them. Send me a text message, a DM, put it on social media, whatever you can do to spread the word. And lastly, if you're a brewery owner ready to take your business to the next level, make sure you head to marketingbrewingco.com and fill out the form to get started and get your free assessment of your current marketing and sales strategies. I will see you guys for the next episode. In the meantime, cheers.